Hello, welcome to the National Guild of Hypnotists, Washington chapter. My name is Danny Green, and we're so glad that you're with us this evening. We are going to each introduce ourselves, and our presenter tonight is Scott. So we're very interested in what he has to tell us. So my name, again, is Danny Green. I'm obviously a hypnotherapist. I help people rewrite the story they tell themselves at the inner mind level, and just to create, release emotions and create a better story. I have 3 programs: the Soul Power Experience, One and Done Weight Release, and Be Smoke Free, as well as intuitive clients. So that's all about me. Barbara.
Hi, Barbara Decker, and I'm a hypnobirthing practitioner, a hypnotherapist, and my specialty is prenatal bonding, connecting mothers and babies while the baby is growing in the womb. That's my passion, and I help healthy babies come into the world and teach the parents how to love them in the womb.
Beautiful, Barbara. Thank you so much. We're doing good today. Nancy.
Hi, my name is Nancy Allen. I'm a hypnotherapist and counselor on the East Side, and I help people break free of whatever's holding them back in their lives and to begin to bloom and thrive more in their life. My practice is on the general side, about half, and the other half is teaching hypnosis for birth and attending some births as a birth doula. And I love the variety and just helping people move to a better spot.
Great, Nancy. Thank you so much. Stanley.
Hi, I'm Stanley. I'm a hypnotherapist, and also I'm a master NLP practitioner, and I'm a certified instructor of NGH. And what I'm most interested in the area is for prove people best performers, or sometimes they call peak performers, that area. And also I've done quite a lot for quitting smoking.
Great, Stanley. Thank you so much. Margot.
Well, I'm retired, but I was a hypnotherapist for 20 years and just loved it. So I just can't leave the field. So I'm still here. But I did a lot of work with tapping and pain management.
Great, Margot. Thank you so much. And I would like to just take a moment to mention that Margot's on the board of this chapter, as well as Scott, myself, and Barbara, and Mark. And so she's helping us out too in that way. Thank you so much, Margot. Willie.
Hi, my name is Willie Olson, and I have the distinct privilege and honor to be married to my favorite hypnotherapist, Dana.
and great. Are you helping people with their golf game? I understand that's what you used to do.
Well, I practice self-hypnosis, but I don't solicit business from anyone else. My big project now is I'm working on I'm going to be doing filming next week on it. I'm going to do an online course on the art of aging.
Great.
Sign me up.
I've been an avid student of aging for a decade and a half or so. And while I don't consider myself an expert, I have a wealth of knowledge on the subject and a lot of tweaks I've figured out along the way. So it's going to be a class for people 60 plus who are healthy and, more importantly, are determined to stay as healthy as they can.
Well, can 58-year-olds join?
Course is for.
Okay, but what if I'm only 58? Can I still join? Special permission.
Well,
okay,
wait a minute. We'll all testify to the fact that you're over 60 if you give us all a bunch of money.
Oh, okay, we'll just fudge on my birth certificate.
I've got a head start on all those 60-year-olds. I'm 82.
Okay, great.
Yes. Well, Willie, I'd love a program on that.
We would love you to present some of your content at this meeting. So let's talk about that later. Deanna, go ahead and let us know what you're doing.
I'm semi-retired. I am taking care of my mother with Alzheimer's, which takes quite a bit of time. I do some massage, which I've done for over 30 years, and I do some hypnosis occasionally when somebody requests it. And I do some past life regression also because I love that work. I just stay busy and I'm doing a lot of things that help a lot of other people. Today I did a pendulum polarity session on someone that needed balancing. And so I can do balancing energies, I can do massage, I can do hypnosis and other things, you know, in the healing modalities. So if you need help, give me a call and I can talk about what can be done.
Oh,
Great.
great. Well,
She
we
keeps
would love
herself
to
really busy.
hear more from you on that. That's so great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pause the timer here. Thank you so much for your great introductions, and Scott will be introducing himself at the beginning of his presentation.
Okay. Well, as Danny said, I'm going to introduce myself as I start this and letting everybody know how I got into the field, why I'm in the field, and that actually led me to do the hypnosis the way I'm doing it now. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a life coach. I NLP certified. I'm a substance use disorder professional. I've worked in the social work field and the hypnotherapy field for quite a while, but I'll tell you about that as we get going. So here we go. In the 1980s, I was working as a unit care coordinator on an oncology unit for group health. The main thing that I learned was no matter how much therapy you gave a person, none of it would work unless you were able to take care of the stress. And what that means is I was talking with a lot of the oncology doctors, and they were telling me you could give somebody chemotherapy, radiation therapy, you could do all kinds of stuff with them. But if they were feeling a lot of stress, the chemotherapy and the radiation therapy and any other therapy wasn't going to help that much until they learned how to deal with the stress that was going on in their lives. So the solution, I decided to get my certification as a hypnotherapist to help with the stress, but I wanted more. So I decided at that time to go back to school and get my degree in social and human service fields so I could offer people an entire toolbox of counseling skills. So where can I do the most good at this point? Because I got to tell you, when I first graduated from the hypnotherapy class, I went back to work that next morning on the oncology unit, and somebody had asked me, what are you going to do with this? And I was kind of stunned with, I have no idea. So that's when I decided I was going to go back to school and get more information about counseling itself. Okay. A friend suggested I take some classes in addiction studies once I got into the social and human services program. And I thought, well, that'd be interesting. I mean, when I was younger, I drank and I did a few drugs, but I was never deemed as addicted to anything. And I was able to stop whatever it was I was doing all those years ago. So what happened was I got into internships. As a part of my degree, I started participating in internships to obtain my chemical dependency professional certification. By obtaining my certification as a CDP, it's now called an SUDP, my credibility with the state and with insurance companies opened up new doors and avenues for me. And the first steps. After learning all about traditional methods of recovery, I felt I was ready to offer something more, a combination of hypnosis and chemical dependency counseling. Well, I was practically thrown out of the field before I could get started. And I'll give you an example. I went to work for a place called Recovery Centers of King County, which no longer exists. And I was sitting in the lunchroom on, I think, like the second or third day, and I was talking, and I mentioned something as easy as harm reduction. And I thought I had set off a nuclear bomb. Everybody in that room just went ballistic. And this was back in the early 90s. And they weren't going to hear of it. No, you can't do that. So I just got up and left the room. So I then started dividing my time. While learning more and more about the addiction studies field, I went to work as a part-time hypnotherapist in my own agency. So I opened up Foundations, Personal Energy Mastery, or Foundations, Medical Hypnosis and Life Coaching. This lasted about 5 years that I did this. Then, outreach counselor and clinical coordinator. I spent 12 years working in the field as both an outreach counselor and clinical coordinator for a prevention program, gathering information on what could and could not be done to work with employers and federal state programs to utilize my skills as a hypnotherapist. Most of the time, what I was told to do when I was working in agencies is if you use hypnosis on the clients, I had to put down that I used relaxation therapy with the client. I couldn't use the word hypnosis back then in the agencies. Then came my biggest break. Project Neon. It was a program of Seattle Counseling Service. It worked with gay and bisexual men who injected crystal meth on a daily basis. And during my time as clinical coordinator, I was able to implement. I got to tell you, this it was a great program. And the woman who brought me into it handed it over to me and said, do whatever you want. Just make it work. I was able to implement a non-12-step recovery program based on, and the reason I say a non-12-step recovery program, you got to remember that the people that I was working for through Project Neon, which was through the public health system, it was gay and bisexual men primarily, and none of them wanted to get anything into a religious belief system, and all of them thought that 12-step was too religious. So I had to come up with something that didn't feel so religiously based for them. And I based mine on the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Great book, and I still use it myself all the time. And I usually give the 4 Agreements on a sheet out to my clients during the process that we're working together. Why People Don't Heal and How They Can by Carolyn Meese. Another really, really great book. It's also a video if you want to look that up. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And private sessions with clients utilizing foundations hypnosis, which included emotional release therapy and mindfulness. After 9 years of working in government, i.e. insurance regulated treatment, I knew that it was time to strike out on my own and provide quality counseling combined with the best of hypnosis and NLP without being restricted by traditional thought processes. Being tied to a profession that spends hours, days, weeks, months, and years of slow, laborious talk therapy. And with being able to obtain quality results within just a few sessions, clients usually see results within 1 to 2 sessions, which I got to tell you is much, much different. I don't know how the rest of you feel about this, and I'd like to hear after I'm done, but when I was working in the field, I oftentimes had a problem with people coming in week after week after week and just talking and really not doing much else. Being able to utilize hypnosis and NLP in the most effective manner possible while staying within the guidelines mandated by various federal and state funded grants and resources. So then I started recreating my private practice. And like I said, instead of just calling it Foundations Personal Energy Mastery, I took life coaching, and it was Foundations Medical Hypnosis and Life Coaching, Seattle Bellevue. I wanted to take the best of chemical dependency counseling and hypnosis and life coaching. So I wanted to combine the two because I knew, even before I learned, and you'll hear about this in a few slides, because I knew that one of the best ways to get people to switch from their addictions would be through their own mindfulness, hypnosis, self-hypnosis, life coaching. I knew that the person could do it themselves, despite what other people were saying. During the first session, clients are taught that they are not their thoughts. And what I mean by that, during the first session when they come in to see me, one of the things I really, really impress upon them is that they are not their thoughts. They're not their emotions. They're not their bodies. And to help them understand this, I gave them the analogy of the car. And I don't have a real slide for this, but let me tell you what I tell people when they first come in to see me is during the conversation, I'll ask them if they drove, and they usually drive here. I say, is your car an automatic? And 99% of the time they'll say yes. And I'll tell them that, okay, if I were to send you out to your car right now and tell you to get in the car, turn it on, put it in gear, take off the brake, and get out of the car, what would happen to the car? Well, everybody knows that, and they're able to tell me the car would kind of roll around until it was stopped. And so my big question at that point is, if you think of your body as the chassis of the car, and your ego or your brain as the engine of the car, because the car cannot run without the engine. But that leaves you with a big question. Where's the driver? And that always confuses people at first. And what I try to get them to look at is we're not going to be working on any spiritual energy so much as with the driver. What we're going to be working with is the ego or the brain. And we're going to teach you to be mindful of the fact that you have all kinds of thoughts, you have all kinds of emotions, and your body, you get all kinds of feelings out of it, but you don't have to buy into every single one of those thoughts, those feelings and emotions. In fact, it was a guy named Rene Descartes, who was a 16th century Christian mystic, who came up with the idea of, I think, therefore I am. And I got to tell you, that's a load of crap. You think because your brain was designed, don't ask me who designed it, I'm not getting into that with you, you can go find that out for yourself, but you think because your brain was designed to think. It was designed to run the car or run the car itself, but who's driving the car and the engine? And that's the thing that you want to really look at. When I work with clients, like I tell them, I want you to be very, very mindful that you have all these thoughts, you have all these emotions, but they're not you. They're things that you picked up on since you first arrived on Earth. We're raised to believe, here it is, we're raised to believe we are our thoughts, we are our emotions. And then how many of you heard the statement, I think, therefore I am? And our brains were designed to think, they were designed to take care of us on a physical level. It regulates our heart rate, our breathing, our blood flow, and every physical activity in our body. Our brains also take in every image, every message, every bit of information from the people and events around us. We are taught to be a good girl or a boy, or what it means to be a bad girl or a boy. We accept all this information as fact. We accept it as true. As we become more mindful, we actually begin to recognize that all the images of the messages, all the thoughts are simply images, messages, and thoughts. So what I'm trying to get the person to look at is that that's exactly what they are. I mean, they've helped you to survive. You've lived through these rules. You've lived by these rules, but sometimes they cause a lot of stress and a lot of tension. And so what you have to recognize is that you are the driver of the car. You are the one who's in control, not the thoughts, not the feelings. You have to be able to experience those, but you also have to know that you're in control. And so the mindfulness, the meditation, the self-hypnosis, all of these things help you to regain control of the car's engine or your ego, your brain. You, the true you, the life energy that animates the body you're in, has the ability to observe and then pick and choose which thoughts, which images to accept. And as we choose which thoughts and images to accept, these choices activate the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system with the release of neurochemicals and hormones. Our bodies are filled with emotions of various types and intensities. So I'll get into the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system in just a moment here. But what I want you to think about is we have those two parts of the nervous system. And in the sympathetic nervous system, which we'll talk about in just a minute, that is primarily the fight, flight, or freeze response that we all go through. Because when you're young and you're gathering all this information about your culture, about how to be a good girl, bad boy, good boy, you're accepting all these things, but you're also creating in your ego, in your mind, three main archetypes. You're creating a judge, a victim, and a warrior. And what that means is that every one of us do this. Whenever we come across something new, whether it be a person, event, whatever it might be, we judge it automatically, instantly, without any real thought at all, such as when somebody comes into your office and I'll tell them that, okay, you drove up to the studio and you instantly and automatically made a judgment about the studio. You didn't realize you were doing that. That's just the way our judge works. And then our victim accepts that judgment and our warrior will do things to carry that judgment out. For thousands and thousands of years, we've been protecting ourselves with the judge, the victim, and the warrior, the fight, flight, or freeze response. It used to be really, really important because we were afraid of being eaten by wild animals. We were afraid of living out in the wilds. We had to do all this stuff. Well, today, people still try to protect themselves from trauma and stress, even though it's not the deadly being eaten by animals or dying out in the woods type of thing. But the body still does the same thing. Does that make sense? And we can talk about that at the end here. So then this explains a little bit more about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And if you'll notice it says gamma and then it says beta. Well, I got to tell you that right now, each one of us is probably in the beta frequency. And what this means is the heart beats in beats per minute. The brain beats in beats per second. Generally, you're in the beta state. I'm in the beta state. We're all in the beta state generally. And that has to do with insight, normal waking state of consciousness, utilizing the 5 senses, sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell. It's attached to physical surroundings, and it allows for conscious thoughts and activities. Now, when we go into that sympathetic nervous system, our brainwave patterns speed up, and we go into the gamma pattern, and that's the one above it. And that's got to do with alertness. You're attached to heightened sense of awareness, activates the sympathetic nervous system. You're more aware because you're trying to protect yourself. This all controls the flight, fight, or freeze response based on conscious agreements. Once again, the judgments, in short, to protect yourself with the fight, flight, or freeze response. So as I explained to my clients, what I'm first going to do is I'm going to get you into a very relaxed state, which is the 3rd state down, the alpha. And the way we'll do that is I'll use imagery, I'll use verbalization, I'll have you breathing, I'll have you do all kinds of different things to get the body just to slow down, to get the brainwave patterns to slow down. That has to do with relaxation, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which controls our body's relaxation response. Physically, mentally relaxed, little or no recognition of time or space, attached to empathy and intuition. Well, that's all great. That's all well and good. And you can teach somebody, I'm going to give you a few exercises to teach them to get into the alpha state. But what you want to do is you want to get them into an even lower state than that. And that's the theta state. And the lower state, some people really consider that the meditative state. There's little or no sense of time or space, relaxed, calm, consciousness, deep meditation, dreams, light sleep, and REM sleep. So what we eventually are going to do, as I put them under, is we're going to get them down into that theta state. Now, the bottom one is the delta state. As I tell them, I'm not going to get you into the delta state because primarily they have recorded all this on EEGs. And the delta state is primarily the brainwave patterns that are shown when somebody, say, is in a coma. And if the person is lucky enough to come out of the coma, they'll tell you that they don't remember any dreams, they don't remember anything. So as I laughingly tell my clients, if I put you in the delta state, you wouldn't be able to pay me, you wouldn't be able to do anything. So I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in getting you into that theta state. Okay. I teach the client how our brainwave frequencies trigger our positive and negative mental status again, and how by changing these frequencies, we can consciously trigger negative or positive mental states. All of our lives, we've accepted the idea that we are our thoughts, we are our emotions, our brains, i.e. our conscious mind of our ego runs everything. We have to have our egos/brain to run our physical body, our heart rate, our blood flow, all of our physical activities. But our ego is also collecting information, agreements about the world around us, how to be a member of our culture. All of these ideas and messages come from the people around us. They come from our parents, adult caregivers, schools, churches, friends, movies, television, books, newspapers, etc. And I have to take a sidestep here. I had not thought about this before Barb Decker, but with the work she does, a lot of the work she does, we're doing the same thing, only she gets to the mother and she gets to the fetus inside the womb, because the fetus is still being affected in the same way. And so she's working with the client at an even younger age than what I was. And so thank you, Barb, for really opening me to that idea of, okay, that makes sense. With this information embedded into our egos, we unconsciously create 3 main archetypes, which I told you about: the inner judge, the inner victim, and the inner warrior. When we are faced with new events, places, people, etc., our inner judge automatically judges any and all situations immediately and automatically based on our agreements. Then our inner victim accepts whatever the judgment is and allows our inner warrior to act on whatever behavior is necessary to keep us safe and alive in the world. And when you think about that, whatever behavior is necessary, the fight, flight, or freeze response, those are the 3 things that really get us into some negative consequences, because we're allowing ourselves to follow along with our thoughts and our emotions, and that gets us into those 3 archetypes. These behaviors can be helpful or harmful based on our beliefs, our agreements, and our embedded thoughts and agreements. At this point, I reinforce the idea that emotion release therapy is a way of clearing old physical and mental effects they've been experiencing in the body, and how, by using ERT, emotion release therapy. The session is dedicated to clearing away emotional effects of old agreements, so it'll be easier to set in the new agreements and the images at the next session. And so, as I tell them, you're not going to forget any of this stuff. I'm not trying to wipe your mind clean of anything. I'm trying to get you to recognize that you can have these thoughts, you can have these feelings. You don't have to act upon every single one of them. You have to recognize that I am in control. I am the driver. So for homework, and I always like to have clients take home some form of homework or practice to help them keep focused until the next session. The following is a mindfulness exercise designed by Stephen Walensky that I learned years ago at a Washington hypnotherapy conference that he presented at. And this was with NGH back in sometime during the 90s. And the group was a little bit different back then, and we had bigger conferences here, and we had a lot of people coming in and doing presenting. So I'm going to take about 3 minutes with each of you. I want you to try this, and we can talk about it after the presentation. I want all of you to close your eyes and put all of your attention and focus upon your breathing. And as you focus upon your breathing, I want you to allow your thoughts to flow easily through your mind, no matter what the thought. Just observe them. Don't stop and really get into it, just observe them. And when the first thought comes up, ask yourself mentally, ask yourself this question: where did this thought come from? And then I want you to answer yourself, from me. And then, who created this thought? And tell yourself, I created this thought. So your eyes are still closed, you're still going through this. And then your next question to yourself is, who am I? And no matter what the answer is, no matter what your ego comes up with, go right back up to the first question, which is, where did this thought come from? Who created this thought, and who am I? And always remember, where did this thought come from? You tell yourself, from me. Who created this thought? I created this thought. And who am I? And no matter what that answer is, you go right back to, so where did that thought come from? So I want you to take just about a minute to let yourself go over those 3 questions and those answers in your mind. Is that okay? Everybody can shake their head yes, if that's okay. Okay, so go ahead and try it. All right, you can go ahead and open up your eyes. And like I said, remember what the process is like for you. We can talk about this after we're done with this presentation. But it's an exercise that I give to my clients during one of the weeks that I work with them. I generally work with clients at least 6 times. Sometimes they'll stay with me for quite a while after that. But to get the basic foundation, I give them at least 6 of these sessions, and with the homework and with doing the emotional release therapy. I also teach specific techniques such as vagus nerve deep breathing to deactivate the sympathetic nervous system, and thus slowing down or stopping the production of hormones and chemicals such as adrenaline and cortisol, which create stress in the body. And that's from the sympathetic nervous system. That's what gets you into that fight, flight, or freeze response. Your body is being readied to protect yourself. So it's being flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. I have a client breathe up through the nose, and then they part their lips and they breathe out through the mouth, with their tongue up against the roof of their mouth, right behind the 2 front teeth. So you breathe up through the nose, and then you part your lips and you breathe out through the mouth with your tongue against the roof of your mouth. I also let them know that the deep breathing will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and going back to the brainwave frequency chart, to start producing hormones and chemicals such as dopamine and serotonin, which creates calmness and relaxation in the body. So it's a really easy way for people to get into a deeper relaxed state just by using the vagus nerve deep breathing system. In fact, real quick, I'll let you know, I was taught this at a class I went to, continuing education unit class I went to for my CDP trainings. And the couple, they were from Texas, they came in and taught the class, and they gave everybody this exercise on the first night, at the first end of the first day, and told us we should practice it that night. So the very next morning, when the class started up again, they asked if anybody had used the exercise. My hand immediately shot up. And I said, well, yes, I used it just this morning, because I had to drive from here in North Seattle all the way down to the West Valley Freeway. And getting down to the West Valley Freeway, I took I-5, and there was a big, big backup getting off I-5, getting onto the West Valley Freeway. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. So I tried the vagus nerve deep breathing system. You don't have to close your eyes. You can just keep your eyes open and breathe up through the nose, out through the mouth with the tongue against the roof of your mouth. And they said, well, did it work? And I said, well, you know, to tell you the truth, it worked really, really great, because I didn't want to get out of the car and kill anybody. And believe me, sometimes when I'm driving the car and I'm on I-5, it really gets frustrating. But this exercising technique really works. And I'm finding that, or I've found over the years, that it really, really helps clients to calm down. It's getting into that vagus nerve, and that vagus nerve runs through the body, and it's a real great connection to the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxed nervous system. Okay, so now the handball technique. I want everybody to hold their little handballs up. So I hand the client a tennis ball and ask them to start easily tossing the ball back and forth, so you can start doing that between each hand. This action will unconsciously cause the left and right hemispheres of the brain to begin to sync up and slow down the brainwave frequencies, thus causing the client to slip into the parasympathetic nervous system and start producing positive neurochemicals in the body, such as dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And it allows you to get into that parasympathetic positive space. So remember that these exercises are great exercises to get for homework. They aren't going to get them into the induction as deeply as what they can do with while they're in the session, but it's a great way of learning how to get yourself to calm down and really become aware of the thoughts and emotions, and recognize that you don't have to buy into every single thought. You don't have to buy into every single emotion. Okay, so where to now? After stepping away from my case management position with Downtown Emergency Services, which is the last place I worked, and I don't know if anybody knows or everybody knows what that is, but Downtown Emergency Services worked with the severely mentally ill and severely chemically dependent homeless people that are living on the streets. So I did that for about 8 years. And after the 8 years, I've gone back into a private practice with hypnotherapy and life coaching on a full-time basis. I've taken what I've learned from experts in the field during my time, especially at DESC with, I hope everybody's heard of Gabor Mate, and if you haven't, he's got a couple of great books that you should read. I've refined the process of emotional release therapy, utilizing ERT to change brainwave frequencies. I've been able to help guide clients away from using drugs, alcohol, food, nicotine, and other behaviors as a coping mechanism to help with PTSD and trauma. And believe me, at first, I wasn't quite sure how effective this was going to be. But, you know, I can point out a couple of clients who came in because they were having problems with alcohol. And we did just the first session with ERT. And those clients kept coming back to see me, but they didn't touch a drop after that first session. Absolutely amazing. And like I told them, I have no magic powers. I have no ability to make you do anything. I'm just showing you how to use your own brain, how to use your own ability to control your thoughts and your emotions, and to become the driver of the car. So in conclusion, I feel that the future of hypnosis is very bright, but with our insurance crisis and our economic forecast, we all need to team up to bring credibility to our craft, to our profession, and to our lives. And that's it. So
Great deal. So go ahead and stop screen share. I've unpinned you, so we will get back to all of us being on the screen.
Great.
Whoops, sorry.
Any
Video.
questions from anybody on anything?
Well, you got a lot of background, Scott.
Thanks. Yeah, like I said, I've been in the field, the social work field, since the early 90s, and it all started on that oncology unit. And so I've just gone from there.
Wow. Good stuff.
Margot,
Does
do you have a question?
Well, it's not a question, it's just a comment. I've been doing the handball technique since I heard you talk about it, almost a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And my husband and I toss the ball back and forth every morning when we start our day. And it
Oh.
really gets you, we do 100, we do 50 back and forth, and then doubles. And it just really gets you off on a good start, nice, relaxed.
Right.
Start feeling in control.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's such
Really
a gift.
recommend it. Yeah.
Wow.
Anybody else? You know, I want to make one comment here. Has anybody here ever heard of EMDR?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, a lot of people in the mental health field, psychiatrists and psychologists, are using EMDR. So I went and got myself certified in that practice. And I found out that my emotional release therapy, the subverbal imprint I use, is exactly the same as EMDR. I just always called it emotional release therapy or subverbal imprint because that's where I was taught.
Yep, I do. I integral. Eye
Yeah.
movement. Same.
Exactly.
Works the same as EMDR. It gives them a chance to focus the brain. It helps them lose the ability to see the thing that was running their lives.
Right.
Less and less and less and less, the more you do it. Yep.
Well, EMDR actually stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is what EMDR stands for. So just what you were talking about, Barb, with the movement of the eyes and yeah. Any other comments or questions? I'd really like to hear out of people and know would you use any of this? Would you feel comfortable using any of this? Is this what you do?
It's real similar to a lot of the stuff I do, and it's good stuff.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing it, Scott.
Okay,
Uh,
you bet.
And this is a very simple induction.
Yes.
yeah.
Most people are willing to do that because they don't think that they're really doing anything.
Right.
And yet it's focusing their mind is focusing on catching the ball in either hand. So they're not thinking about all the bad stuff.
Right. So Margot, when you and your husband do this, are you thinking about the fact that you're causing changes in your brainwave frequency? Are you thinking about anything that Barb was just talking about, or do you just do it and it works?
It's more of a mindfulness practice. But I do eye movement to, 6 up, 6 across. I do that when we do our exercises, and it's just such a clearing process. Of both of those work equally effectively, I think, and it just makes a difference to your day. I just feel more present all the way through, and but I think it's a way to collect your thoughts for the day and get focused on what you to make it let's see, wait a second. It helps me to be the best possible me, rather than waking up and thinking, oh, I have to do this and this and this and this, because I don't think about that when I'm doing it. It breaks that pattern, because by the end of the day, lots of times if you haven't had time to relax before you go to sleep, some of that stuff's still there, and so it just gets you off to a good start.
Yeah.
I love it. I just, even when we go on vacation, we do it. I take my tennis balls along. It's just a very pleasant practice habit,
I thought
a
it was,
good
a-
habit.
I
I'm
thought
sorry,
it
what,
was an
Willie?
excellent, I thought you had an excellent presentation.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a good introduction to you, to learn a little bit more about you. It was great introduction to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. By the way, does anybody remember what happened to them when you did the Stephen Walensky question? The where did this thought come from? Who created this thought and who am I? Did anybody have anything happen at all or any experience that they wanted to share?
For me, we quit too soon.
Okay. Yeah, when I do it with other people, I mean, I
It's-
didn't want to take the whole group and give them like 10 minutes of just silence. So I think you're right, William. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I think when I did that exercise, I noticed that I wanted to improve upon who I was each time. Like, that was me. Who am I? And I just wanted to be better,
Right.
if that makes sense. And when we did the tennis ball one, I was thinking that would be good to do before you go to bed because it would clear everything out left from the day and it would relax you to go to sleep before you go to sleep.
Right.
I just thought of that during your talk. And I thought, oh, we should be doing this at night.
Right.
Maybe I'll do it at night too.
I'm sorry,
Actually,
what?
go ahead, Margot, finish it up.
Oh, I did. Just maybe we'll start doing it at night too.
One thing that came up for me, Scott, was what did it say? Where did that thought come from? And working in the field that I am right now, the thought that came out of my mind was I got it from my mother. Because she had drilled into me that I was not good enough.
Mhm. Right.
And I could never do anything right. I was never as good as my sister. I mean, those thoughts, where did that thought come from? My mother. And then, so when Dana's talking about the final thought is, what's the final sentence? What does the final sentence say?
It says, so who am I? And then as soon as you answer, no matter what the answer, I am Barb, I'm this, you go right back up to the first question.
I'm the
again.
daughter. I was her daughter.
Uh-huh.
And then what's the last sentence?
There's who am I? Where did this thought come from? And wait a minute. Now I'm losing it. Where did this thought come from? Who created this thought? I created this thought. And then you ask yourself the question, who am I? And like you said, no matter what the answer is, you know, that was given to you by your mother, that was given to you by
That's
all kinds of
right.
different influences, but now it comes from here. And you got to recognize that it comes from here. And the brain does not know the difference between a real or imagined event. The brain just goes off of what's going on in the brain. It could be that the thought or the emotion totally wrong, but our inner judge accepts it as correct and right.
And that's what I was feeling, is I had that drilled into me. I was programmed.
Yes.
And therefore those thoughts that were coming to my mind were coming from her, drilled into my mind. I was programmed to think that way. And then when Dana was saying, I wanted to kind of overcome that. I wanted to do better. It was expressing the fact that, wait a minute, I don't have to do it that way.
Right. Right.
I don't have to do it that way.
Right.
Because I don't believe that I was that useless. And I wanted to prove to her, damn it, that I could have gone down a road where everything was negative and made nothing out of my life and not been a happy person and not been a really trustworthy person.
Right.
Because I drilled in that I was nothing. I was not going to accomplish anything. Instead, the dander went to me like, I'm going to prove it to you, lady.
Mhm.
I went the other way because I got angry and I
Mm.
didn't want to be that person that she kept telling me I was.
Right.
So, yeah, so those words resonated with me differently.
Okay. So Danny, did you have any particular experience from those 3 questions of Dr. Walensky's?
Um,
Is he talking to me?
I think talking
no,
about
me,
Danny.
Danny.
Oh, yeah,
So,
Danny.
I would have benefited from every, 10 seconds for you to repeat the questions, because I kept having to look at my sheet and go, what's the next question?
Oh,
What's
okay.
the presentation. So I'm sure when you do this with clients, you're prompting them.
Yes, we take more
so-
time in the session
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I do
yeah,
go through it more with them. This was kind of a quick,
yeah.
this is what I do.
So I kept thinking, well, a thought would come to mind, then I'd look at my paper or look at this slide. So anyway, I'm not one that focuses easily.
Right. It's okay. I
Thank you.
have those same kind of things going on.
Yeah, it's so much better when it's one-on-one with a guide like you are. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, good.
Okay.
I'm going to, just so our recording doesn't get too long, I'm going to say thank you so much, Scott, for
Well,
presenting.
wait a minute.
Oh.
There's one other person we haven't heard back from, and that was Stanley. Stanley, did you have any particular thoughts or experiences from those 3 questions of Dr. Walensky's?
Yeah, in fact, I think that's pretty interesting. I will say that's very similar to the Zen dialogue. And I heard from the Barbara, I think the most interesting thing is about mindfulness.
Mhm.
This idea, in fact, that's a long, long ago. Even I did not expect later will become so popular. So in fact, if really we do that very deep, definitely you can feel something, even it won't be so simple, just only your mom say something, because later if you go in deep and then even you can see, okay, you still have the dialogue and you accept, in fact, that's not really part of you, and you can feel that. So that way is how the mindfulness, how
Right.
it works. That's way. Yeah.
Well,
Right,
Dr.
Stanley.
Walensky wrote a book called Trances People Live, and he spent many, many years in several ashrams learning these things. So when you mentioned about being older and ancient, yeah, he got a lot of his stuff from ashrams and old thought processes. So now I'll try to shut up. I'm sorry, Danny. Sometimes it's
That's
hard to get me
great.
to shut
Well,
up.
we keep telling people that you need to present. So Stanley, we would love to hear more about what you think about the Zen dialogue and some of those ancient practices. So please get on the calendar to present at the NGHWA meetings, which are always the second Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock till 8:30, and except for August and December. All right, so that is our recorded meeting for this evening. So thanks so much for joining us. This will be uploaded to YouTube, and Scott will send out a thank you for being here, like a newsletter tomorrow with the link.
Oh, yeah,
All right, great.
I always do.
And